Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. This is Matt with Coyote Creek Archery here in Ellis, Kansas. New video for you today, and today I want to address new archers. This is going to be specifically geared toward new archers, but I think there's some information that some of you experienced archers, even maybe you've been shooting for 2-3 years, maybe just a little bit longer. Maybe you've been shooting for a lot longer and you just haven't thought about these things. But just some basic things to consider as a new archer. I get a lot of people calling me or coming in the shop wanting to get into archery for the first time. And these are a lot of things that I encounter with these new archers that I think will help people out and help you out to understand kind of the basics and some things that you need to realize and consider when jumping into archery. I love seeing people get into archery for the first time. That's really what motivates me as a shop owner. I really like to help people out, get people excited about it, and help people to be successful. So these are just some things that we're going to cover that will help a new archer out. And the first thing is get measured for your draw length. First of all, you can see back behind me, I've got a board here where we'll measure your draw length. Now, I'm not saying that if you measure a 29, you need to be set at a 29 inch on the draw length setting on your bow. But it's a great place to start. I measure 28. And I shoot, depending on the bow, anywhere from 27 3/4 to about 28 inches. So I'm real close, but it gives me a place to start when I'm setting up your bow so we know where you need to be. If I set your bow at 29 and it comes up way short or way long, I know we need to make an adjustment, but it gives me a place to start. So you should have that. Any shop should measure you to see where you should be as far as your draw length. Next thing is get a bow that fits. I see a lot of people coming in with a bow that was given to them by a friend or a family member, someone that's maybe hunted for a while. They've upgraded bows and they had this old bow laying around and they just give it to someone expecting it to fit. Well, a lot of bows that were built 10-15 years ago didn't have adjustability built into them. They didn't have a module that would rotate. So it may just be cam specific on the draw length. And it may be way short for this new archer. It may be way long. Axle to axle length may be off. That bow, we don't know where that bow has been, if it's been dry fired, how it's been taken care of, and those types of things. And yeah, it can get you by in the short term, but if you're serious about getting into it and you want to jump into archery, I would go talk to a reputable pro shop. If you're nearby, obviously I want you to come see me and I'll help you out. But get set up with a bow that's going to fit you and be the correct draw length, draw weight, axle to axle length, brace height. All those measurements are important to consider. A couple of bows that I have here that I really like for the new archer would be the BowTech Amplify, and I've got it right here. So Amplify is a great bow. It's a really nice hunting bow if you're someone that's looking to get into hunting, but it would also be a really nice target bow because it has a smooth draw cycle. The axle length is not really long for a target bow, but let's look at this real quick. 31.5 inches. So not a long axle to axle bow, but kind of just right in that happy medium spot where a lot of today's hunting bows are going to sit. 6-inch brace height. And you do have a lot of technology in this as well with the flip disc modules, some vibration dampening. And this bow comes as a kit. So you can see I've got a quiver. I've got a 3-pin sight, a stabilizer. I've got a rest, and I have a wrist sling. This is not all high-end accessories, but it's some things that are going to help you to get started. And you can always update those as you go along. Package bows are really going to be your better deal as far as upfront cost, just to get you started and get you shooting. They're going to last. They're going to last you quite a while. I mean, these are octane accessories. They're still good accessories, things that I would use. But there are, I would say, better or more higher end options out there available. So BowTech Amplify is a great option. I've got another bow here. This other bow is the Elite Terrain. Okay. And it's a little bit longer bow. It feels longer. The measured axle to axle length on this is 32.5. So it's only an inch longer, but it feels a lot longer. And that could be because we have a 7-inch brace height on this. This has adjustability in the mods as well. Really nice fit and finish on the Elite bows and a nice smooth drawing bow. And it's a bow that can grow with someone. So even if you're a young archer starting out, you can grow with these bows. The Amplify has a lot of draw weight adjustment to it. The Terrain has 15 pounds of draw weight adjustment, so make sure that you are getting the one that has the peak weight that you'd be interested in. This one here is a peak weight of 70, so it goes from 55 to 70 pounds. I believe the other one is 45 to 60 pounds. But make sure that you're getting the correct peak draw weight. But there's a lot of great options, and there's other brands as well. These are the ones that I carry in my store. But there's a lot of great brands that offer entry-level bows, mid-price bows that are still of great quality and going to last you a long time. So another thing to consider when setting up a new bow, getting a new bow, is the draw weight. Don't get real keyed in on, I have to be shooting 70 pounds or I have to be shooting a certain amount of draw weight. Shoot what feels comfortable to you. You know, I'm going to share this. I just turned 45 years old. And the older I get, the more I realize that there's a lot of technology in these bows. They're so much more efficient than what they used to be. I don't have to shoot a lot of draw weight and wear my shoulder out. So I'm shooting an Elite Omnia. I just took the 70-pound limbs off and put 60-pound limbs on it. And I turned it down to about 55 pounds. And it's really pleasant to shoot. I can go out and shoot 50 arrows at a time and not get tired. And so I would recommend setting your bow at a draw weight that is comfortable to you, something that you can work to get repeatable, consistent accuracy with, repeatable with your draw cycle, repeatable with your anchor, and not fatigue yourself quickly. If you can't pull that back easily 30 times in a row, it's probably too much draw weight for you. So you might look at that. You don't have to have a 70-pound bow to kill a deer or to kill an elk. They've been killing big game animals for a long time with recurves and long bows that are going at 140 feet per second. So it's draw weight is, yes, the arrow will get there quicker, but I would rather have you in a comfortable drawing bow that you're going to be confident in and not something that you struggle with. Another thing to consider besides the bow obviously would be arrows, and get arrows that fit. Any reputable pro shop, especially including Coyote Creek Archery here. I'm a gold tip dealer, and you should be able to find a pro shop that's going to get you set up with the proper arrows, proper length, proper spine, depending on if you're shooting broadheads, if you're shooting a big cut on contact broadhead, you want to get the end of that arrow out past the front of that arrow shelf at full draw so that it's not coming in contact with your hands, it's not hitting the riser and popping that arrow off the string. There's a lot of things to consider there. But you should get the proper arrow set up for your specific needs, for your draw weight, for your draw length, for that particular bow, and what you're wanting to use that bow for. Another thing is your release. Make sure that your release is set up correctly. I've got some releases here behind me. So what I'm looking for when I have a release on is, especially if you're using a index finger release like this, okay, I don't want this release creeping up here this far onto my hand, because now I'm only using the tip of my finger. I want to get this tight enough around my wrist to where that release comes right about here to where my fingers meet up with my hand. And then that way, as I draw, it's going to lengthen out a little bit, but now I'm using more of my knuckle towards the second knuckle, and I can hook around that and I can pull through the shot a lot more, versus I'm going to be real punchy with the trigger if I'm only able to use my fingertip. Make sure your release is set up properly. If you're using a handheld release, there's a lot of adjustments. Just be careful with that, with adjusting the travel and the tension, all those different types of settings that you have on a release. I've punched myself in the teeth before, and it's not a whole lot of fun. So make sure you have something that's going to be comfortable for you and that's going to work well for you. Next thing is drawing the bow. Never draw a bow without one of these, okay? Never draw a bow without an arrow in it. I have people that come in here and they will draw their own bow back without an arrow in it, and I just turn and look the other way because it makes me nervous. It is easy to dry fire a bow, a lot easier than people think. I can't tell you how many people call me that have dry fired their bow. I'm sure none of it's intentional. Most of the time it's just they get in a rush or they're distracted or something like that, and they forget to load up an arrow. But always make sure you've got an arrow in it, whether you have it on a draw board and you're checking the timing of your cams, or whether you're setting up your peep sight, any of those types of things, put an arrow in it before you draw that bow back. It doesn't take that much to do that. And that way, if it does accidentally go off, you're not going to damage the bow. There's a lot of expense in replacing cams and limbs and strings and that type of thing, especially if you've got a new bow that you haven't had very long, and now you've got to put all that money into to get it fixed because you damaged it just because you didn't use an arrow. Another part of drawing that I see with beginners is they will hook onto their D-loop, and when they draw back, their finger is right here, right in front of the trigger. Get your fingers behind that trigger when you draw. That way, it's not going to go off at halfway through the draw cycle. Get your finger behind that trigger when you draw back, get to an anchor, and then you can move up in front of that trigger. Okay. A third thing with drawing that I see is sky drawing. And I'll step back here so you can see. But people are drawing with that bow way up in the air, and they're pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling to get to full draw. And what that tells me is they're pulling too much weight. That bow is there's too much draw weight for them to pull back. And yeah, they can get it back, but if you're in a hunting situation and you've got a deer coming in and you have to draw clear back like this, you're making a lot of extra movement that's going to spook that animal off. So your draw cycle should look something like this. I'm going to draw across my face. I'm going to have a little bit more strength there, but I'm not aiming the bow clear up at the sky. Okay, so very, very smooth and easy. I can just kind of push the bow forward, pull back across my face, and I'm not way up high and stretching out trying to draw that bow that I can't physically pull back. Next item is grip. Okay, new archers want to grip the bow like this, and I get it. That just feels natural. You don't want that bow to jump out of your hands. You don't want to drop that bow on the ground after you've shot it, and I get it. But what this is doing is this is inducing torque into that bow, and it's going to be very hard to be accurate and be consistent with the shot when you have a grip like this. That's why I recommend a wrist sling for a new archer. I use one myself. Just from doing these videos for this channel and watching them and watching myself shoot, I realize that I struggle with, at the shot, wanting to grab that bow, and that's inducing torque. So what I suggest is if you've got to grip it like this to draw it back, grip it like that until you draw it back, and then settle into something more like this. My knuckles are about 45 degrees. I've got one finger on the front of the riser if you want it there. Ideally, I could come around and touch this thumb or just get them out of the way completely to where I'm not touching the front. You're going to be having weight on the back end that's going to be holding that bow in place, but your hand should not be vertical like this. It should be more of a 45 degree angle to where I'm just kind of right there in that notch of my hand. If you want to put a finger on the front, again, that's fine if it makes you feel comfortable to do that. This is going to get your hands out of the way of the arrow, out of the way of a broadhead if you're hunting. And it's going to be a lot less likely that you're going to torque that bow with a grip like this. So think about that with your grip as well. Work on that. That's something doesn't come natural and is not easy to do. But this is going to help you be more consistent and more accurate in the long run. Next on the list is our anchor point. So when we draw back, one thing I see from new archers a lot of times is they're way out here away from their face. So they've drawn back and they're looking clear to the left side of that string. So when I draw back on my bow, I like to be kind of right here on my jaw. Sometimes I end up with a knuckle up in my ear, just depending on what release I'm using. If you're using a handheld, you may be using the top knuckles. But find a consistent anchor point and look down the center of that string. That's what the peep sight is for, to help you line up through the back of that string. I like to use my nose to touch the string. So when I draw back, that string's going to be right on the tip of my nose, and maybe right here on the front right corner of my nose, and I can look right down that string. I have a lot of times when I'll put a peep in for someone, and they'll draw back, and they say, "Well, it's way off to the side. I can't see it. I'm looking way to the side. I can't see the sights. I'm looking more at the riser." I said, "That's because your hand you don't have a consistent anchor when you're out here. But this is just a natural thing for new archers to want to do. So find an anchor point, okay, somewhere on your face, and don't put a lot of pressure with that string against your face, because again, that's going to affect your arrow flight. But just lightly touch that string, maybe to your nose or somewhere that works for you. I say there's not always a right way to do it. There's not always a best way to do it. It's what works best for you. And everyone's different, but if you can find something that's going to be repeatable and work well for you, do that and stick with it. Next thing for new archers is practice. Make sure that you spend time shooting your bow and practicing and getting proficient with it. If you're going to be shooting at targets, if you're going to be competing, obviously you want to spend time practicing so that you can get better and you can be competitive. If you're going to be hunting, you owe it to the animal that you are hunting to be proficient with your bow. Don't just practice slinging arrows at long distance, especially now. This is March. It's kind of cold and windy out. I'm not able to go out and shoot outside a lot, but I've got a target here behind me that I can shoot at 10 feet, something like that, and just focus on good form. We talked about grip. We talked about anchor point. Talk about following through the shot. Work on those things. One thing that I find helps new archers and even helps me, take the sight completely off your bow and shoot blank bail just real close to the target and focus on the fundamentals of your grip, of your anchor point, of your release. And work on that over and over until you get consistent with that. That's going to help your shot sequence out. It's going to help you be more accurate and more proficient. Ideally, that's what makes archery more fun. If you can shoot better, it's going to be more fun. If you're struggling, it's not going to be as fun. So practice working on those things. Once you get good at that, and the weather's nice and you can go outside and shoot, start at 10 yards, work your way back to 20 yards. If you get feeling more confident, there's nothing wrong with taking practice shots out to 50, 60, 70, 80 yards, even farther if you have a place to do that. I shoot all the time at 60 and 70 yards because it makes those 20 and 30 yard shots a lot easier. Having said that, I would not advise you to shoot at animals at that distance. Have a self-imposed distance that, if that deer is at 30 yards and you don't feel comfortable shooting past 25 yards, then that deer is off limits unless you can bring that animal closer to you or if it just happens to come your way. I have had several new customers come in. They've only been hunting or shooting a bow for a year or so, and they say, yeah, I shot at this deer and he was 55 yards away and I hit him in the back end and I never found him. Well, that's not an ethical shot. And I know some of you are going to argue with that and say, yes, I can take 50-yard shots. And maybe you can. But to me, the point of archery hunting is to get close to your animals. So if you want to take long shots, why not hunt with a rifle or hunt with a muzzleloader or something that's going to give you some extended range to where you're going to be able to take an ethical shot. But taking long shots with a recurve or a compound bow, to me, is not an ethical way to hunt, especially for a new archer. I have shot pronghorn out to about 45 yards. I've shot whitetail deer out to about 35 yards. And anything past that, I don't feel real comfortable taking that shot. I don't want to wound that animal. I owe it to that animal for me to make an excellent shot, a well-placed arrow on the animal, so it is going to die quickly and not have to suffer from me basically being greedy and trying to take that animal when it's not in the location that I should be shooting at. So I'll get off my soapbox. I'm sure some of you are going to be upset about that. But the whole point of hunting with archery equipment is to get close to animals and get them inside of that tight range. And that's what makes it fun and exciting. And flinging arrows at long distances is not really what it's about, in my opinion. Last thing I have to discuss for new archers, and this really goes for anyone, get your bow into a reputable dealer, a reputable pro shop, someone that you trust, someone that knows what they're doing, and get your equipment checked over. Before the season, we're getting close to the summertime here, and fall hunts will be starting in August. So yeah, we're a few months away here. It's only March. But you get into those warmer months when you're wanting to start practicing and shooting, get your bow into a pro shop so they can check things over. Make sure that everything's in good working order. Make sure that everything is tuned, because you get a new bow. A lot of new bows don't have the highest end strings that that they're shipped with from the manufacturer. So they're going to stretch a little bit. Things may come out of tune. Timing may change. Your axle to axle and brace height, draw lengths, those can all change. So bring them in, have those checked out, and have someone go through your equipment and make sure that it's in good working order. Inspect your arrows. Always flex your arrows before you shoot them and make sure that there's no damage to them so that they're not going to come apart on the shot. And just have your things looked over. Make sure that everything is working like it should. Again, you owe that to the animal that you're pursuing if you're going to be hunting with that bow, to make sure that that bow is in the best condition that it can be in so that you can be the best archer that you can possibly be. So anyways, hopefully that helps you with choosing a new bow. One last thing is don't just take my word for it. I always want you to go out and shoot different bows. Go to a pro shop that you trust, see what they have available, shoot 3, 4, 5 different bows or whatever you can get your hands on, and let that bow pick you. Make sure that you go somewhere that will allow you to do that. I've had phone calls from people saying, yeah, there's just no one around me that lets me shoot the bow. I can handle it, I can draw it back, but I can't run an arrow through it. And I don't understand that. If you are going to be spending that much money on getting set up with the bow, I want you to shoot the bow and have something that feels right and feels comfortable to you. So make sure you do that. Don't just take a recommendation from a friend and say, this is the bow you should get. Go out and see what's going to work best for you, because you might be surprised. It might be something that you never thought of. Anyways, I've rambled on long enough. If you have any questions, you have any comments, you can leave them in the comments below. My website is coyotecreekarchery.com, and my contact information is there. So feel free to give me a phone call, send me an email, shoot me a text. Just don't send me any hate mail about taking those long shots, because I'm probably not going to respond to it. Anyway, thank you for your time, folks. Have a great day, and God bless.